Hey guys, Chris here, and I'm Ukrainian Canadian. Today is February 28th, 2025, and let's get to the news and map updates happening in Ukraine and Russia, shall we? So I'll quickly do a map overview, and also I'll give you guys some of my comments with the latest Trump statements, because of course he's always the man of the hour every single day. And some other things I want to share with you guys. But let's first talk about the latest map changes, since we haven't done a map update in a little while. And first I'll start in the Pokrovsk, Velikonovosilka area, which is in the eastern side of Ukraine. And you can see that in the last few days, if I'm looking at Deep State, you can see that there have been some very minimal gains by the Russians and also some gains by the Ukrainians. So there's been a little bit of back and forth between both sides. As you can see, the Russians pushed a little bit in the direction of Velikonovosilka, north of the city of Velikonovosilka. They're trying to break through the border between Donetsk and Dnipropetrovsk. As you can see here, there's actually three borders. There's one with Zaporizhia, this is Donetsk, and this is Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. Now the Russians are very desperate to reach the border because for them it's a kind of a symbolic win, even though it doesn't mean much. Even if they were to get through the border between both oblasts, for them it's more of saying that they're now in Dnipropetrovsk. But we know that this is not even 1% of the territory, and for them to get there, it will still be a very long way to go, because there's still several settlements that the Russians have to take before they can cross the border here. So this is still an area of concern for the Ukrainians. You can see the Russians do have some small gains here, so I'll keep you guys updated in with regards to this area. Additionally, in the Kurakhove direction, you can see that there's still a lot of fighting ongoing by the small village of Ulyakle. And so a few weeks ago, the Russians launched a huge assault here with mechanized vehicles, armored vehicles, and they were able to get a foothold of this small village here. So you can see there's still a lot of fighting ongoing here. So I'll keep you guys updated over the next few days what occurs here, but you can see that really in the south of Pokrovsk, the Russians do have momentum. The area where they have been struggling is really around Pokrovsk, and you can see that actually Deep State updated this a few days ago, but the Ukrainians were able to really push back the Russians out of the village of Kotline. So this is a village that sits on one of those alternative roads that connects Pokrovsk to other Ukrainian villages and cities under Ukrainian-controlled areas. So you can see the Ukrainians were able to push out the Russians slightly out of Kotline, and they were able to expand some of their gains in some of these villages outside of Pokrovsk, so breaking the Russian momentum around Pokrovsk. Many Ukrainian soldiers do state that the appointment of Drapate, this new commander-in-chief of the OSU, so that is the Ukrainian brigades that are currently fighting in the area of Pokrovsk. So his appointment has really done a lot of good. There was better communication between brigades, a better defense that was established, and overall things are moving in the right direction in this area. So that's very good news. And of course, we do know that over the next few months, there's a lot of work ongoing to bring the Ukrainian military to a corps structure rather than a brigade structure, which was the highest level of military structure that the Ukrainians had. So there's still a lot of improvements to be made, but we're seeing some positive things as well. And so more or less, I'm not saying it's fully stabilized, but the Ukrainians are maintaining decent control over the area of Pokrovsk. And the same with Toretsk. Actually, the Russians continue attacking in Toretsk, but a few days ago, I heard that the Ukrainians did a small counteroffensive, so they pushed back the Russians. You can see that the Ukrainians are now fighting kind of the center of Toretsk. So unfortunately, this city has been completely destroyed by the Russians, and so there is very little here to defend at this stage, but it is crucial for the Ukrainians to maintain a good position in Toretsk, because afterwards the fighting will get closer to the large city of Konstantinivka. So it's really important for the Ukrainians to hold Toretsk, but also Chasiv Yar. You can see the Russians are really launching 3 assaults, one towards Pokrovsk, Mirnograd, one towards Toretsk, and the other one is obviously Chasiv Yar, which has been under constant Russian pressure for the last year or so. So that's the situation in the Pokrovsk area. Apart from that, everything that is north of Bakhmut and Chasiv Yar, the Ukrainians have pretty decent control over the situation. There haven't been any major shifts here, so there's really nothing to report with regards to Kupiansk. Liman, this entire area has been more or less the same over the last few weeks, with very minimal gains by the Russians. Vovchansk, the same thing. You guys can see that Vovchansk and that northern Kharkiv area where the Russians launched their offensive back in May of last year, very little has changed since a few months ago. The Ukrainians continue fighting here and repelling Russian assaults and just kind of maintaining the line, so that's good news as well. And last but not least, let's cover Kursk. So in Kursk, there's been a lot of confusing reporting, which is very unclear. So last few days, Russians are claiming that they were able to break through the border between Kursk and Sumy, and so you can see that this area is in gray. The Ukrainians denied this. They mentioned that they were able to repel this assault, and they were able to actually maintain the border control over the border here. So we'll have to see over the next few days. We'll need some image confirmation, images and videos to confirm this, but as we can see, the Russians continue applying pressure in Kursk, but it's not going according to their plan, right? As I've mentioned multiple times in the past, the Russians were planning to take the entirety of Kursk back, the occupied territory, in a matter of a month or two. And we're now over 7 months of the Ukrainians present in Kursk, and the Russians are struggling heavily, and now they have to use North Korean soldiers, which even then there's a severe lack of them because the Ukrainians were able to destroy about a third, if not half, of that North Korean grouping that was brought from North Korea back in October and November of last year. So the situation is complicated, but the Ukrainians are holding firm here in Kursk, so that is great news. Now I have two updates, and I forgot another update I wanted to give you guys with regards to Pokrovsk. What is helping the Ukrainians is that I did share with you guys, I believe 2 weeks ago, the Ukrainians had a successful attack over Russian command HQ in Selidove. So unfortunately, the Ukrainians weren't able to hold to Selidove. This was kind of the second largest city before Pokrovsk. And so it's unfortunate the Ukrainians weren't able to hold on to this city, because this could have bought a lot of time for the Ukrainians. But the Russians are now using Selidove, this city of about 25,000 people, as a staging area for their offensive and future assaults that they're currently doing in different directions. So the Ukrainians 2 weeks ago destroyed one of the military HQs, Russian HQs here. And today there was a video that showcased a successful attack over an ammunition depot that where there was a stockpile of thermobaric weapons in Selidove. So the Ukrainians successfully destroyed that. So that is going to be hindering their ability to use thermobaric weapons and also artillery to destroy Ukrainian and attack Ukrainian positions around Pokrovsk and Mirnograd, and also Kurakhove in the south of Ukraine. So that is excellent news that the Ukrainians were able to also pinpoint this specific ammo depot and destroy it successfully. And last but not least, I want to share with you guys another good story, another good update with regards to Bryansk. So that is in the north of the border between Sumy and Chernihiv with Bryansk. So the Ukrainians were able to successfully destroy a Russian FSB outpost in the small village of Belaya Berezka in Bryansk in Russia. And so this outpost was important for the FSB. They had several jammers which were helping them in downing Ukrainian drones that were flying at night to destroy Russian refineries and other types of Ukrainian drones that were flying. So the Ukrainians targeted this outpost here in Belaya Berezka with French hammer bombs, and they apparently killed about a dozen FSB officers that were present during this attack. So another good update with regards to a successful Ukraine operation, and likely that the Ukrainians either use Mirage 2000s or F-16s with these hammer missiles that they were using. Perhaps it was some other jet fighter, maybe a Su-24, who knows. But the main objective was achieved in destroying an outpost, a Russian outpost, and killing several high-value targets in the process. So that's the map update for today, guys. Now, I promised you guys that I would talk about Trump, and of course, he comes out with more statements. And if there's one thing that I've been saying over and over and over again, is that the roller coaster of news will continue. And I've told you guys that I would not be surprised. And if you guys remember, I did post on YouTube community I believe a week and a half ago, where I did say that I would not be surprised, following his comments about calling Zelensky dictator, that Ukraine's at fault for the war in Ukraine, that he would completely shift his narrative and actually start praising Zelensky and Ukraine in a matter of a few days or weeks. And that's exactly what he's doing. So if there's something that is absolutely predictable about Trump, is that he's absolutely unpredictable. And so I did mention to you guys many times that you cannot take at face value what Trump is saying. For him, the truth and the facts never mattered, and he will continue to lie if that is achieving his strategic goals. What I see here, why Trump went on the attack on Zelensky on February 19th when he called him a dictator, is because he absolutely wanted Zelensky to sign that minerals deal as soon as possible when the US Secretary Treasury came to Kiev and presented this kind of unacceptable draft, and Zelensky obviously refused it. And that's when his offensive campaign started against Ukraine. Because I believe, and I'm allowing myself here to theorize and modeling a scenario where this is possible, that Trump sees that he can't achieve a quick victory, a quick peace in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia, that the diplomatic way and the diplomatic solution isn't going to work. And I think that he starts realizing that. Something I've been telling you guys over the last few months, that Trump sooner or later will realize that just sitting both sides on the table and concluding something isn't going to work. It's not that simple. And so now he sees that he needs to have quick victories, quick things that he can present to his base as, look, Biden was just signing blank checks to Ukraine and giving handouts left and right to the Ukrainians. I'm not doing such things. I'm forcing Ukraine to pay for their resources and for our help. So I think that's what the Trump strategy is with regards to forcing this minerals deal on Ukraine. And with regards to Russia, of course, it was bringing them to the table, to the negotiations, right? Russia was not interested in opening diplomatic avenues and communication channels with the United States and other countries. And Trump forced them in Riyadh to start opening these diplomatic communication channels. Right. There was nothing else that was achieved in Riyadh a little bit over a week ago. But I see that Trump is pushing this as a victory. That, look, the Russians were sitting with us on the negotiating table in Saudi Arabia. That is already a huge win, something that Biden was never able to do during the course of the 3-year war in Ukraine. So that's the way I see things. And don't be surprised. Yeah, right now, you can see that Trump says that he can't believe that he called Zelensky dictator a few days ago, and that he said, "Did I say that? I can't believe I said that." Next question. So you can see that this is just the strategy of Trump. He doesn't care what he said 3 or 4 days ago or 2 weeks ago. For him, as long as during that day when he said the lie, it achieved the strategy that he was looking for, he's going to continue lying. So you guys cannot be so reactionary. We cannot allow ourselves to be reactionary as much as it hurts. And I do agree with you. It's unacceptable to be calling Zelensky dictator and blaming the Ukrainians for the start of this war. We need to accept the fact that Trump is going to use those tools, those lies, for his own benefit. So let's keep cool. Let's be calm. And as I've said many times, there is going to be many more of these statements from Trump over the next few months and years. So we need to be ready for that. But the good news now is that yesterday there was the official confirmation that the US sanctions on Russia will continue for at least 1 year. The weapon deliveries continue. So there hasn't been a break in weapon deliveries. And it is likely that the minerals deal will be signed over the next few days. Now, I'm not really sure. I do believe that Zelensky is actually flying to Washington today to meet with Trump and announce this agreement. I'm not sure if it's going to be today or over the weekend, but certainly looks like this minerals deal between the US and Ukraine will be signed. And that over the last few weeks, with the back and forth negotiations, Ukraine was able to remove some of the points or conditions that Ukraine just saw as unacceptable. So we'll see a more, I guess, appropriate deal between the United States and Ukraine through this minerals deal. We'll have to see. But either way, as I said in my live stream Monday, it's not like tomorrow American companies are going to start digging and helping, build these new mines and factories in Ukraine. This is a long-term deal for Ukraine and the United States. So again, we can't even put into question whether this is going to happen, because that's a long-term investment over 10, 15, 20 years. We should not be expecting American companies and businesses simply move their headquarters or start building their operational chains and logistics in Ukraine in a matter of a few months. That's just not going to happen. So what I see here is that doesn't mean that Trump is done with Ukraine. Whenever he will feel like he needs more out of Ukraine, the pressure will be instantly put back on Zelensky. And don't be surprised if in a few weeks, in a few months, Trump starts saying exactly the same thing, that Zelensky is the worst dictator of them all. He's actually committing genocide against Russian people, blah, 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 so he can extract more gains for himself. So we need to be prepared for that. But what I see now is that Trump is going to shift back the pressure at Putin, and he wants something from Putin, from the Russians. We'll have to see what he wants, and he will be putting the pressure back on the Russians, without a doubt. And some last good news from the Ukrainian allies. France, UK, Canada, and Ireland officially stated that they were prepared to send peacekeepers to Ukraine if there is going to be peace concluded between both sides. And that is something that the Russians have been saying, that this is unacceptable. We will never agree to it. So again, it's a huge question mark whether it will ever happen. I'm very skeptical with regards to a true peace being achieved through diplomacy. I'm very skeptical around that, just because I don't see Russia being committed to it. Russia says all the right words, but when it comes down to action, they do no such things, and they still speak with the language of ultimatums. Their conditions are maximalist. They want Ukraine to give up territories that they don't even that Russia doesn't control yet. They don't want Ukraine to be part of NATO. They don't want Ukraine to be allied with Europe. They want to install their own puppet governments. They want to, force Ukraine to conduct elections in the middle of war. I mean, there's a lot of these conditions that are just unacceptable. So I'm not seeing any goodwill gesture from Russia, and I'm not anticipating them to commit to any lasting peace in Ukraine. So, last but not least, guys, I want to share with you guys a nice little video that showcases again the massive decay of the Russian military. And you can see that a few weeks ago I shared with you guys Russians starting to use donkeys for their logistics, moving supplies to the front line, and Russians were outraged that they were receiving donkeys instead of vehicles. And now you can see that the Russians are also using horses to move troops and assault Ukrainian positions. And it's interesting, the Russian soldier seems to be from Central Asia because he's not speaking Russian. So it's possible that this is some Buryat, I'm not sure, Tuvan, or maybe some Central Asian mercenary from Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, I don't know. So you can see they're wearing Z hats, and there's about 5 or 6 horses that they're using. So again, if this doesn't display to you guys the decay of the Russian military, I don't know what will. And there's multiple of these videos that have been coming out over the last few days of Russians using horses and donkeys. So, using horses and donkeys in the 4th year of the war was definitely not part of the plan for Putin, right? The second biggest and best army in the world, they said. So I'm just eager to hear the comments from the Russian trolls and my pro-Russian audience, right? I'm expecting them to say that this is actually a brilliant idea, a brilliant strategy by the Russians. It doesn't burn fuel. You don't actually need fuel. They move fast, and you can actually eat them when you're done with the horses. So again, part of the 4D chess that Putin is playing here. So that's the video for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed my video update. I hope you guys continue supporting Ukraine as well. Again, in the description below, I have 2 links for different drone funds to which you can donate to. So please do that, because drones are helping the Ukrainians in eliminating as many Russians as possible. They're currently occupying Ukraine. And I'm very sad to see that these poor horses are this unfortunate casualty of the war, but that's war, and war brings us a lot of casualties, unfortunately destruction, but we need to make sure that we defeat the evil that Russia presents to the world. So with all that, guys, thank you so much for your support. Slava Ukraini!